The headline on the Mitt Romney piece, "Let General Motors Go Bankrupt," was not considered a politically popular thing at the time. You interviewed Donald Trump for this book as well. Is that how you think Trump assesses his rise? And he and George Bush don't agree on a lot, but do they agree on how Donald Trump became Donald Trump and how we got where we are?
I would say I've known Donald Trump for a while. I've interviewed him before. I interviewed him for this book. I wouldn't think that Donald Trump would assess his rise to anything other than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He would say, look, it's because of my personality, the way I connect with people. So I don't think he would have anything to do with the Bushes, and he didn't really have any relationship with them, and they don't have a relationship with him. Now, I think Donald Trump would say, I got here on my own and on my own merit, and that's how I got to be a very popular person.
The sui generis, that he came out of nowhere, and he was this man of destiny.
And remember, of all the people who've ever run for president of the United States or become president, he's the only one who had no government experience. So if you had never had any government experience and you become president of the United States and maybe a second time president of the United States, you might think you're pretty talented.
And this is a guy who, in the 1980s, was volunteering to be a weapons negotiator with the Soviet Union for Ronald Reagan. He's always believed that he could, as a business guy, come in and run the government better, do everything better, and he thinks he did it. Does he think he did a great job, I assume?
Donald Trump thinks he did a great job as president of the United States the first time, and I think that's what's propelling him to go forward for another term. And remember, he's been nominated by the Republican Party 3 times in a row. In the history of the Republican Party, nobody's ever done that. So he's got some political skills and talents that maybe people on the left side of the party, or left side of the spectrum, don't recognize.
The William Jennings Bryan Award winner. Okay, in January, you caused some consternation at the World Economic Forum when you said that if the election were held on that day, that Donald Trump would win it. How do you see the race today?
You know, almost every expert I've talked to says they don't know.
Yeah.
Now, usually Washington people want to tell you, I know more than everybody else, so
right.
let me whisper what's really going to happen.
We're bad like that, yes.
But right now, I can't find any expert who really is willing to make a bet on who's going to win. Nobody really knows, and I'm no better than anybody else. Today, I can't tell you. I'd say it gets down to the non-college educated men in central Pennsylvania. If they turn out for Donald Trump, he's got a pretty good chance of winning. If African-American women turn out for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania outside the Philadelphia suburbs, she's got a pretty good chance of winning. African-American women vote typically 96% for the Democratic candidate for president. But you have to get them to turn out. If they don't turn out, then that vote doesn't mean as much. So I don't think anybody really knows. I don't think we'll know for at least a week after the election.
You're making me feel tired, as I think, because I'll be in this very room for that week. I'll put a litter under the desk. I hope you have a lot of coffee. Yeah, we're going to need it. I think that's right. The theme that runs through this book and through your TV show and through a lot of your work is about what makes greatness. Right? What are the keys to things that are great, that are successful, that are transcendently good? This book is about leadership. What do you want people to take away? What do you want people to take away from your book about what makes great leaders?
Well, what makes great leaders are people who actually, I think, have a vision of where they want to go. They are honest with the American people about what the challenges are going to be, but also they recognize they've got to work with other people. Nobody in our system can do anything by himself or herself. You've got to have members of Congress, people in the public, people in your administration work with you. The most important thing I want people to take away from this book, which is a book about the presidents and so forth, the various presidents we've had, is that people should vote. We have, last election, we had 160 million people vote, 160 million people. But 80 million people eligible to vote did not vote, 80 million people. So, you don't know what the election would have been like if 80 million, if half of those people or most of those people had voted. So I'm just trying to encourage people to learn the presidential candidates' positions, learn what they stand for, and vote. We've had millions of people lose their lives to defend our right to vote, and we should actually exercise our right to vote.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.